So you want to know what to do, especially if you're a seller and you're selling your house, or what to expect on the closing side. Well, I have my special guest.
This is Igor with Moshe's Law. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.
Sellers can expect to understand where their money's going. So at the closing, we want to make sure that they are aware of all their funds, who are they paying, the settlement closing fees, the transfer taxes that they have to pay, and then of course the paycheck that they have to receive. Okay, so if it's a trust, the money has to go into a trust. If you have one seller or two sellers, where are my proceeds and how am I getting paid? They should have the keys at the closing. They should be transferring the keys to the buyers at the closing. Sellers will be expected to sign transfer documents from themselves to the buyers. Of course, all done through the attorneys at the closing. If you're buying a condo or a co-op, there's a different transaction there. There's usually attorneys involved in the transaction that are going to be at the closing. Real estate gets paid at the closing, but more importantly, the sellers, if they're moving somewhere else, they might be using those funds to purchase another property. So there might be wires floating around or being sent on behalf of the sellers as well. And of course, closing statement to show a breakdown of all the fees that they're paying for the sale of their property.
Now, Igor, most people are going to ask the same question. How long does it take for a closing? And there's not a general answer for that, but typically the closings that you attended, how long would you say it took?
Great question. So typically, how long does a closing take?
Yeah.
It could take anywhere between 25 minutes to an average about an hour and a half to 2 hours. If we are dealing with a co-op, it might take a little longer. If there's a mortgage financing, again, about an hour and a half, 2. If it's a cash transaction, it should go nice and smooth and fast. Depends if you're prepared prior to the closing for all the adjustments, all the figures, all the checks, everything was properly done, everything was correctly checkmarked. You just come to the closing and sign the paperwork and be successful.
Now, we have some occasions where the seller can't make it to the closing, and what are the ways they can have the closing happen without them being there? What are some of the options?
Excellent question. You have many sellers that live in Florida potentially and selling in New York. We just had that recently where we did a power of attorney. It's a documentation that the seller signs and appoints either their attorney or a trusted friend to sign on their behalf so they don't have to be there in person at closing. In addition, also potentially, if it's an individual, of course, they could pre-sign some of the documents. We had a seller come in today, pre-sign all the documents, title affidavits, closing disclosures, ACRIS, all the documentations, and then we had the broker drop it off to the buyer's attorney side, and they signed their portion of it, and then they just mailed and wired the checks to us.
Now, if anything unforeseen happens at the closing, what are some ways that we can remedy? What are some stuff that you've seen happen that were unexpected? I know you have a long list.
Well, there's a lot of unexpected. The main thing I would ask, of course, is the listing, the buyers and sellers agents is one after the final walkthrough, try to negotiate some kind of credit, or we could also put some money aside in escrow if the walkthrough wasn't successful and there was something broken or not fixed that was supposed to be repaired, or something new may have happened that might jeopardize it. Usually we'll do what's called a tax contingency to make sure that there's no additional liens or violations prior to closing to ensure that the transaction is closing properly. Many times if it's over a certain time, 5 o'clock, a late closing, it might be what's called a dry closing, which means nobody's getting paid that day. And if you don't come up to a conclusion, it'll be paid the next day. Everything will be held in escrow. Correct, next business day, not even the next day. Because if it's a Friday night, you're not getting all the documents and wires till Monday potentially. But you do everything we can pre-closing to make sure, like I said, adjustments, walkthroughs, final figures, that you have a nice, smooth transaction at the closing table.
All right, well, I have other questions, but basically we want to make sure you guys come back for the next video. So how can they reach you in your office, basically, if they have questions?
Of course, you can reach me directly through smoke signals. No, I'm kidding. You can reach me directly on my cell phone, which is 917-204-3037. You could go to our website at www.moshesLaw.com. So that's www.moshesLaw.com. Feel free to reach out anytime, always available.
Before I forget, I gotta ask the question. What other languages does your office speak?
We speak 5 different languages. We speak Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, Staten Island, Long Island. But we do speak Russian. We speak Spanish. We have Italian speaking. I think that's pretty much wraps it up.
But anyway, I hope you got some value out of this. If you have any questions about anything real estate, give me a call. You can reach me at 917-975-5985. I'm a Brooklyn guy, and I talk too fast, so I'm going to slow it down one more time. 917-975-5985. You can also go to our website at mynyhomesales.com. If you have any questions, legal stuff, basically, regarding real estate, feel free to give him and his team a call, and give them that address one more time, the the website.
The man, the legend over here. It's www.moshesLaw.com. Here for all your real estate need guides, trusts, and estates.